This mid-year budget includes a lot of benefits for hard-working Georgians, but I'm most thankful that it delivers on the promises I made last year to the people of our great state, and it's geared to help them fight through 40-year high inflation.
Governor Brian Kemp praises the General Assembly for passing the amended budget. Welcome to Lawmakers on Legislative Day 32. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. This is our special one-hour show focusing on Georgia's budgets. It's appropriate to spend this time because passing a balanced budget is the only constitutionally mandated requirement during the 40-day General Assembly. Georgia's budget focuses on everything from schools and roads to public safety and health issues and much, much more. Just like with your personal budget, there are a lot of factors to consider. The chairman of the Appropriations Committees join us to discuss all the highlights. But first, we're going to hear from the governor, and for that, let's go to the Gold Dome for a report from our Capitol correspondent, Rochelle Ritchie. Hi, Rochelle.
Well, hi, Donna. The governor today telling reporters that he signed that amended budget on Friday, and he also shared some of the things that he's excited about that are in it. And in the Senate today, a debate over school safety and fighting gang violence.
Governor Brian Kemp on the north steps of the Capitol acknowledged the signing of the amended fiscal year 2023 budget, a budget that encompasses a host of funds to support education, state employees, mental health initiatives, and law enforcement.
This mid-year budget includes a lot of benefits for hard-working Georgians, but I'm most thankful that it delivers on the promises I made last year to the people of our great state, and it's geared to help them fight through 40-year high inflation.
The governor confirming this bill will be one that pushes Georgia's workforce forward and provides better economic opportunity for all.
We will do what we can to help Georgia families and businesses here in our state. And while some on the federal level are pushing a budget with raises on taxes of Americans, we're giving money back to the people through our budget because they know best how to use it. Last year, we returned over $1 billion to the taxpayers of Georgia through a state income tax refund. This year, as you know, we are doing that again, giving $250 back to single filers, $500 to those who file jointly. This budget includes $3.5 million in grants to increase nursing student capacity and grow this critical part of our healthcare workforce. And we've also allocated $5 million to support paraprofessionals in becoming certified teachers, ensuring that we have more educators for our classrooms.
The amended budget will also save Georgians $500 in property taxes, an incentive the governor says is a result of conservative spending and $1 billion surplus. And with another surplus expected for 2024, Georgians could see additional savings.
My mission is to continue to grow our state, to continue funding our priorities like we're doing now, most money we've ever funded in public education, continuing to focus on creating good jobs, creating the workforce and the people that we need in a trained manner.
HB 147, a bill Governor Kemp heavily promoted and supported, was in the Senate today. The bill would require intruder alert drills in schools, as well as anti-gang training for teachers.
All students must participate in the intruder alert bill. However, in recognition of local control, the governing body of a local school system or public school may provide an option for a child's parent or legal guardian to elect in writing that such child not participate in intruder alert bills.
While most Democrats said they would support the bill, they tried to amend it on a variety of issues.
I'm concerned that identification-focused training could result in racial profiling of students, and it could increase their likelihood that they'll be exposed to the criminal justice system. Now, I get what we're trying to do here, but we know sometimes there's biases in schools and in teachers, and sometimes those biases are directed at people of color. That's just the society that we're living in. So I want to make sure that we're very clear, or that we are just more mindful of some of the implications of that bill and the wording there.
With this bill, there's a specific provision that allows for districts to have parent opt-outs. Those opt-outs, however, are optional, and if we are going to provide parents with the ability to opt out, then we should make that something that school districts do and that they do on an annual basis.
But Republicans resisted.
Senator, were you or I ever allowed to opt out of participating in a fire drill?
No, Senator, I was not.
Thank you, Senator.
I do believe there was a lot of thought and a lot of care that went into the crafting of this bill. I think that the amendment number 2 is a slap in the face to the concept of local control. And because of the care and the thought that went into the bill, I'm not in favor of the other amendments either. I will object to all amendments. Thank you very much.
While all of the amendments failed to pass, the bill overwhelmingly passed 52-3.
And Donna, that is my Capitol report. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. We're going to spend time tonight bringing you the highlights of the state budget. Quick disclaimer here, though. The Georgia Public Broadcasting is a state agency, and we also get some funding in the state's budget. When it comes to the budget, we want to make sure you understand how it affects all Georgians, and we'll get that breakdown from the appropriations chairs for each chamber. In the House, Chairman Matt Hatchett of Dublin in Lawrence County. And in the Senate, Chairman Blake Tillery of Vidalia and Toombs County. Chairman, thank you again. Welcome to Lawmakers. It's your first time. He'll show you the ropes. It's easy. All right. Chairman, yeah, I know. Chairman Tillery, I understand you guys live relatively close to each other, and given your work is actually 365, it's all the time. That's probably convenient.
It is. I was born in Dublin.
Wow.
Chairman Hatchett knew him before I came to the legislature. He's been just a close friend, is a great asset for Middle Georgia. We could try to claim him in Southeast Georgia, but really just a great asset for our state.
Yeah, you just came in December,
Correct.
So you are hitting the ground running on this. Right. All right, then. One person who understands what you're going through is the man who chaired the House Budget Writing Committee for 12 years and decided not to seek re-election, Terry England. I reached out to him to see if he had a message as we start this Lawmakers Budget Show, and here it is.
Thank you, Ms. Donna, for asking me to come on this evening and have this little cameo appearance. And it does seem a little odd after 12 years of chairing appropriations in the House not to be there with you this evening, but I am very happy to have my friend Matt Hatchett as my replacement there. And so I want to say good evening to Chairman Hatchett and to Chairman Tillery, and just tell you both thank you for all that you do. You know, there's only a handful of us that are still living that understand the sacrifice that you are making, not only from time away from your families, but time away from your businesses, and just the hours that it takes to put in to do the job that you're doing. And I just want to tell you personally, thank you on behalf of my family and my friends and a state. You know, there's 11 million people that are counting on what y'all are doing. And like I said, I counted this morning real quickly. I think there's 6 of us that are remaining between the House and the Senate that have been in your shoes at some point in the past. And so there are really only 6 of us that understand what the sacrifices are that you make. You know, there's a lot of water that's been under the bridge over just the last few years. It's kind of unusual that today is marking the 3rd anniversary of when we hit pause in 2020 because of COVID-19. And, you know, hit the pause button and thought, well, we'll be back in 2 weeks. And it wound up, we came back in with 2 weeks left to go in the fiscal year there in June and had to put together a budget. And there was so much that happened in the meantime. Chairman, of course, Jack Hill passed away, and Chairman Tillery, you stepped up and stepped in and have done an incredible job. I'm so proud of you and what you have done and everything too. So just want to tell y'all thank you. I miss you, but I am so proud of how you conduct yourselves and what you've done. And, you know, I'm just a phone call away if there's anything I can ever do to help you all. So, Ms. Donna, thank you again so much for this opportunity to say hello to my friends and hello to the viewers out there in Lawmakers land. And we miss y'all and hope to see you soon. Thank you and God bless.
So in Lawmakers land, I want to get your reaction. I kept that a secret from you both. What did you think?
Well, wasn't expecting it, first of all.
Yeah.
Terry has been a good friend of both of us. We ended up having to do that budget together when Chairman Hill passed.
You had the same thing where it was quick for you to learn the whole process.
It was, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without Chairman England. And yeah, you caught us with that one. We normally know what to expect a little bit here. Usually we provide some of the slides. So we did not provide that video, so well played, Donna.
Yeah, so your predecessor reaching out.
That was a surprise. It was great though. I actually saw him today, but
did you? And he kept it a secret?
He didn't say a word. He didn't say a word.
He looked a little more relaxed.
He was very relaxed, I think.
He was very relaxed.
What does that tell you about this process, huh?
No, Terry gave a lot of time and
he did
a lot of work and service to this state.
Yeah.
So
well, we
we're
appreciate
thankful.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this discussion on the budget process. So let's start with that. Chairman Tillery, you've been through this since 2020, as we just heard. So explain the process a little bit, and we're going to put something up on the screen to talk about it, because it's not one of those things where you just do during the General Assembly, and as we talked about, it's almost year-round. And one of the first things happens in September, and the agencies put in their budget requests, they submit them to the Office of the Budget. So talk about that, and then
you've got the timeline there on the screen pretty clearly. The governor, when we were signing today the amended budget, as you had the graphics on earlier, I mentioned to the governor, I told him it was my 8th budget. I guess it was my 6th. I got a little out of order myself there, but you see the timelines year round, and what it really should point out is how hard our friends at OPB and the other agencies work. There are times of this year, if you look at that schedule, that they're running 3 budgets at one time. They're closing out in July, they're closing out one year's budget. They're in a new year, and they're already writing for the coming year. So it takes a lot of skill to be in those positions. They're hard to fill and hard to come by, and a lot of the folks in the executive branch who fill those positions usually get rated from either my office or Chairman Hatchett's office, where they might get a little bit of a training ground.
Let's talk about that one part about the governor setting the estimate, the revenue estimate. What is that about?
I'd tell you that is probably his most powerful authority that he has in the state constitution. There are a ton that he has, but he sets the top end revenue estimate number. So we can't spend above that number. This year it's right at $32.4 billion. So he tells us how much is going to come in. If he were to set that at $20 billion, that would be the spend. If he set it at 40, that would be the spend. It's a whole lot of pressure on him too, because you're predicting what's going to happen for the next, sometimes 18 months out. We're in that position right now. You saw what happened in some of the markets today, and the governor and his staff are trying to project where the state of Georgia will stand 18 months from now. We've been very fortunate to have governors of both parties who've budgeted extremely conservatively, and that's why I think our state's in the position that it's in now.
Yeah, so it is a process. So you've got that revenue estimate. You guys, the governor gives it to you guys right as the General Assembly starts. Like, I think it's within 5 days or so. Right. He has to give you that revenue estimate. Then the House really starts the work. Well, first of all, you're both dealing with the amended budget, but it all starts with the House first. Right. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
So we start with the amended budget, and of course that was new to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You started in December. In January you have
December's got this in January, but we have a great team that hopefully got me up to speed pretty quick. Yeah. But this is a huge learning experience for me, and it's totally different because I've gone from being involved with almost all of the bills in my previous roles to now I'm focused on just one or two. So
one or two big.
We talk to a lot of people. We have a lot of requests, and people are in our offices all the time, and 15 or 30-minute segments, and just listening to everybody. So. Yeah.
So the House has that. Each time the bill comes up, the budget bill, House, then Senate. Then the governor signs, and what we saw today was him talking about signing it Friday, the amended budget. Now we're working on the fiscal 2024 budget. The House passed that last week. It's on to the Senate. So as we get going, you will be able to talk more about it than you will, because you haven't really had a chance to see it yet. So let's talk a little bit about some of the largest, where some of the money goes, right? And one of the big, and we have something we're going to put up the screen, a breakdown of where the state gets its money. The largest amount, about half of it, comes from income taxes, both personal and corporate. And that's about 46% or so for this FY 2023. And then in corporate in particular is 6%. Next it is at about 4% is sales tax, and I think people think sales tax is probably more. Then there's the motor fuel tax at about 3%, and then that's down from last year, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then the lottery brings in about 4%, and the rest is from other fees and taxes and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to see what you guys think about it. In particular, Chairman Tillery, let's talk about that motor fuel tax. I know the governor put a pause for several months while the prices were really high on gas.
Right, the motor fuel brings in roughly between 150 and 200 million a month. So round that off around 175, 180. And the governor paused that, as you know, last year. There's a bill, I believe, in the Senate tomorrow to ratify his suspension of that. It provided about a 30-cent per gallon break for Georgia taxpayers and Georgia drivers at the pump over the past almost 9 months, I believe. So because we had such strong revenues otherwise, you don't take and pull that money completely out of the budget and leave DOT in a lurch. That motor fuel money goes to DOT to fund roads and bridges and LMIG projects in every county. We're luckily in a position, because again of fiscal budgeting, to backfill those dollars with other state general funds to the tune of about $1.1 billion, and we did that in the amended budget. I imagine you'll see a bill ratifying that tomorrow come out of the Senate, and we will trudge forward from there.
A lot of people appreciated not having to pay that tax, but it turns out it's last year was $6.6 billion in it, so it's about half. So it was a lot of revenue that the state lost, but we're okay.
Right. Luckily we are. I mean, things are going great in the state, and people were still driving and had, other revenues continue to come in because we have great employment, a lot of people working. So.
Yeah, so let's talk about this surplus that we have in the state right now. And a lot of people down at the Capitol are talking about it, and I know that's why they spend a lot of time coming up to you. $6.6 billion, that's a lot of money. So how did we get here? How did we get to that point?
A lot of different ways. One is federal spending. Remember, we had increased federal spending across all walks of life. So hospitals were paid more, schools were paid more, different businesses received PPP, and all of those monies they were coming in, they were spending them. So you saw sales tax through the roof through multiple months. I think just now you're starting to see it level back off. Income tax as well. They paid income taxes they were spending and hiring other employees to do the work that they needed for the sales tax items they were buying. And so Georgia revenues have been high, but I think they've been inflated because of federal spending. So we're on an inflation high, a little bit of a sugar high, I think is what I might have called it last year.
You did.
The percentage increase that you've seen that federally about 8%, 9% inflation. Our budget matches, it's about 7.8% is where our budget is, but our revenues have certainly been higher. Will they hold there? I mean, we're watching that after this week, especially. But after this, and I know you got to ask Hatchett the same question, but let's make sure we explain that when you're spending those surplus dollars, you're spending one-time dollars. So can the state of Georgia use it as a personal budget? Could we afford to buy a house? Yes. But if we buy that house in the general budget, we're committing to buy that same house year after year after year at the same cost. And we don't always know that that $6 billion will be there. We're not expecting a $6 billion surplus by any means this year.
Yeah, and then buying the house and then having to make sure you can have the upkeep,
that you can
right?
live in it. That you actually can live in it.
That's right. Talk about that a little bit in terms of where we might be headed. That's
well,
just
I think
high.
I think our economy in Georgia is doing great. We've got people still moving here. We've got record employment, and I feel that yes, we may be on a little of a sugar high, but I think we've had some growth, some real growth. Where is that number? That's the $6.5 billion question. Where are we? Where are we going to maintain? Where are we going to land? Blake and I get a report every week that shows us the revenue that's come in for that week, and it's it looks great, but we're all just wondering if the bubble's gonna burst, and who knows? I'm more positive, I guess, than some people, and I think we're gonna continue to we might not grow as much as we've been growing, but we've just got a lot of things going for us in Georgia. I mean, a lot of great things happen.
Right, a lot of industry coming in,
Right.
a lot of possibilities for jobs, so things like that.
Right.
So now that we know where the money comes from, here's a look at the highlights of where the money is going in the amended 2023 budget. And so we know that the largest chunk goes to education. 52% goes to education, and that includes K-12, the University System of Georgia, Technical College of Georgia. You want to talk about that a little bit while we have this up?
While you got it up, the previous slide in this slide, it's neat to look that the first slide, about 72% of your revenue comes from income taxes and sales tax. Right. And then if you look at this, about the same thing. This is 73% go to education and healthcare. And then you've got all those other smaller pieces of the pie that, that make up just a small portion of the dollar spent, but I think there's
so this is the earlier one.
Just 90-something agencies in just a little piece of the pie.
Yeah, we're going to get to that slide. So 21% Health and Human Services, which includes the Department of Community Health and Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. Public Safety is roughly 7% of the budget, and it's for the Department of Corrections, GBI, law enforcement. I mean, that's huge. 7% of the budget goes to the Department of Transportation, and finally, all the rest of that, economic development, bond debt, general spending on operations, and is that pot? Is that everything? In that general fund, it's your driver's services, it's, everything else you can think of. It's a lot, right?
It's your legislature, it's your DNR, it's everything that people would normally think of when they think they're touching government. The Department of Insurance, Department of Labor.
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State's office.
So elections and everything comes in. So it's a lot. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of things for you guys to think about. Those percentages are pretty close to the way they looked last year as I was putting this together, though. So it doesn't change a whole lot, right?
Well, the numbers are so big, it'd be hard for them to change.
Yeah, that's true.
But the focus of our General Assembly has been for years. I think a lot of pastors have said if you want to know where someone's values are, you should look at their checkbook. If you take that same notion of the state budget, our values are with health and with education. And that's reflected in our budget.
Yeah, so the priorities don't change a whole lot. I do want to put up another graphic that you sent us, and this talks about that 90% of all of the state funding is from 12 different departments. So the biggest chunk is just 12 departments, but they're big departments. Education, K-12, but also University System of Georgia, and early child care is like down and near the bottom. And so there's a lot that goes into just making this all work, right?
Right.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's funny. We probably spend most of our time debating that 10% at the bottom.
At the bottom?
Yeah, because all the other is fairly determined. You can't make a lot of, or we're fortunate that we don't have to make a lot of changes to those first few. You do have some fluctuation as you get further down, but nothing drastic. I mean, it's like Chairman Tillery said. I mean, it's they're big numbers, and to make a big difference, you're going to have a big change.
Yeah.
Those bottom numbers, those are pennies, but they're a lot of pennies.
Yeah.
a lot of zeros.
Would you say that the Georgia runs pretty lean and mean in terms of a budget? How would you describe it?
I think it does.
Tell me, Chairman Hatch.
Of course, this is my first time in the role I am, but I think Georgia is running lean and mean. I think we do. We watch what we're spending, and that's like Chairman Tillery said. The governor sets the revenue estimate. It keeps us grounded when we're doing what we do, and there's a lot. I kind of go away a little bit of what maybe you asked, but there's a lot of need. There's a lot of real need out there from a lot of different areas that government touches, and that may be a little more to discuss a little later. But I mean, we really we've really been hit. The lady that runs our budget office said this is the most requests she's ever seen.
Wow.
And a lot of it is because we are in such, you see the big money that's in our reserve, and everybody thinks we've just got a ton of money. But the governor did a smart thing by setting his revenue estimate where he did. It keeps us conservative.
Yeah, because we never know. Like the news from yesterday,
right,
and then what we heard today changes everything. I want to put up one more graphic before we move on a little bit. And here's the graphic you sent us on general funds for fiscal years 2008 to 2023. And you see that uptick there. Can you talk about that a little bit, Chairman Tillery?
Well, sure. I mean, first of all, the state of Georgia is continuing to grow, and you're seeing the effects of inflation. They're reflected in our budget too. We're a very large buyer of goods. So if families are seeing their eggs cost more, their gas cost more, their home products cost more, we are too. We consume those same items. We consume a whole lot of fuel. We consume a whole lot of eggs. We actually grow our own in the correction system, a lot of them. But
yeah, I forgot about that.
So that is, if it's costing more for Georgia citizens, it's costing more for Georgia government too.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Oh, he can do that well.
All righty. I'm going to let you guys take a break. We're going to take a break now. And when we come back, we'll dig into the amended budget that will take us through the rest of this fiscal year and the budget that begins July 1st. We'll talk about that. You're watching Lawmakers on GPB TV.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
Whichever way I turn, there's a trap. Let's set this palace on fire.
She's to be married. She is not married yet.
It's never a burden to love or give. The mother is at the heart of everything we do.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport on the PBS app.
Community. Learning, working, playing, celebrating. Doing life is always better together. At GPB, we aim to provide you with the tools to be able to do life together well. Our mission to educate, inform, and entertain inspires everything from our wide range of programming to our stimulating radio conversations to our fun in-person events. We've got something for everyone. Visit gpb.org/community to learn more about our upcoming events.
We care about things that affect the lives of every American.
We are there at the front line
to get to the heart of what really matters in every issue.
This country has not seen this in 80 years.
This extraordinary moment in American history.
You're making such a huge impact.
Trust is at the heart of what we do.
Welcome back to Lawmakers as we continue a one-hour special budget show. I'm Donna Lowry. This budget show is special, and we're glad to have joining me are the General Assembly's budget gurus, appropriation chairs in the House. First of all, Representative Matt Hatchett, and in the Senate, Senator Blake Tillery. So let's get into the General Assembly focuses on two budgets. We've talked about that. This big one is the big one is the one for the upcoming fiscal year that begins July 1st. But you guys start with the mid-year or amended budget, and that funds the state's needs through the end of June. And Governor Brian Kemp, as we heard earlier, signed that late last week, held a press conference about it this morning.
These folks behind me realize the environment that we're in right now with inflation, a lot of economic headwinds. We're fortunate to live in a state that has been weathering those breezes, if you will, and hopefully we won't see a storm here. But I believe that other states are seeing storms. You can look at California. They have a budget deficit this year. We have not experienced that because we've funded our priorities, budgeted conservatively, and we have a great rainy day fund that will keep us going regardless of what the economy looks like over the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, so as we dig into this amended budget, I'm going to lean on you, Chairman Tillery. So as we dig into it, because you know more about the amended budget than the one you just got, which is the big budget. So we will hear more from Chairman Hatchett later on. Let's start with, we're going to put some highlights up on the screen. And the big one is the $1 billion in property tax relief. Talk about that. That's
now you're getting the real story. See, I actually argued that was a bad idea early on. So now you're getting the true story.
Tell us about that.
No. Listen.
You thought that was too much?
No, not at all. I didn't think it was too much. Just the separation of powers between local and state governments.
Oh.
But the governor was adamant that he thought it was needed. You've seen home prices soar based again on inflation, and the governor's the governor and I'm not. So you see who won that battle, and that's perfectly fine. It's a good thing for the pocketbooks of Georgia homeowners.
Yeah, they'll start to see that soon, right?
Yeah, well, at the end of the year.
At the end of the year.
On their tax bills.
The tax bills that we're filling out now for last year. Let's look back on that screen. There's also help for non-certified employees when it comes to the state benefit plan. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we hadn't funded that in the past. You've seen, so our state health benefit plan, we've held it artificially low for years to try to help school systems. They're the ones who pay the most in. We've held that number at $945 per member per month. For them to pay for non-certified employees and certified employees to participate in the state health benefit plan. For the certified employees, the state pays 80%, and those are your certified teachers. For the non-certified employees, that's all on the local dime. And so since we're having to increase that number, again, based on inflation, to $1,580 a month, the House, in its wisdom, laid out a plan to allow us to sort of ramp up to that number. And the Senate was able to find a middle number and match with them.
So it'll be a phase-in and something that they can be happy about. The amended budget also provides for $115 million or so for school safety grants, and we've heard a lot about that for the individual schools.
Right. I think it ends up being $50,000 per school. There was a little bit of a discussion between the House and the Senate about how it would be handled. Would it be handled at a district level or handled at a school level? I think we landed at the school level. Although, as Chairman Hatchett knows, and Chairman England would have told us before, that the dicta in the budget can be disregarded. So we'll see how that holds in the end.
But the schools have to be excited about that, because they'll be able to do some things with school safety, and they're able to do what they want to do with it, right? There's not something that's telling them what to do.
Right. There's $50,000 per school for improvements necessary, tailored to each school.
Okay, so tell us about how the amended budget allows for reimbursable grants for paraprofessionals, because these are the people who are working in the schools. They may not have their degrees or may not be certified, and you're trying to get them there. The big part of the workforce that could happen, that Georgia needs, right?
Right. Well, the governor and the legislature have worked on a teacher pipeline for years. The governor's saying, hey, we've already got people who are in the classrooms working in a less than certified teacher capacity. Is it possible for us to just help bump them up? And the way he's doing it instead is doing it as a reimbursable grant rather than funding that on the front end. So it would be reimbursable as that individual returns back to the classroom over a period of time to hopefully help draw out their tenure and their longevity in the classroom.
Yeah, so that's what we hope, because we know there's a crisis, there's a need in schools. Chairman Hatchett, there's a one-time benefit adjustment for retired state employees. This is a big one, and anytime you talk about retirees, it's a major issue at the Capitol, I know.
Yes, it is, Donna. I've heard from several people, and one person in particular, Speaker Burns, who was real concerned about what we're doing for our current state retirees. We haven't been funding a cost of living increase for those retirees for quite a few years. We did a little bit last year, and we wanted to do a little more. So this would give $500 per retiree, a one-time check. I call it Christmas in July, but I guess they'll get it in June. And then right now we've included another benefit of the same type in the 24 budget, so that we sent over to the Senate. So hopefully it'll be in there too for the 24.
So when you talk about the need, certainly the state's retirees, senior citizens.
Right, they've had the same inflation issues we've had. The gas, and everything's gone up, paying $8 for a dozen eggs and things like. I mean, they've experienced it just like everybody. So we chose to do that, and hopefully it'll benefit many retirees. I think 54,000.
Wow, $500 a piece.
$26.7 million.
The fact that you have those numbers in your head always amazes me. I think it's great. So they'll look forward.
I don't have them all in there, but I remember that one.
They're on a fixed income, so I know they'll appreciate that. So now this is when we're going to change the conversation a little bit to you more so, Chairman Hatchett. The House passed the fiscal 2024 budget last week, and it's now in the Senate with you, Chairman Tillery, still going through every bit of it. So I know you don't want to give out a whole lot about it. But feel free to jump in at any point if you want to on any of these items. So let's start going through. The good news for Georgia taxpayers is another tax rebate, right?
Yes.
Talk about that.
Another tax rebate. It's $250 for single individuals or $500 for married couples, and that for those that have filed income tax for the last 2 years. I think that's how we do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's in there. Also, we had a cost of living increase for all active employees in the state, $2,000 a year. So.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. So there's more money in salaries, but there's a breakdown. Explain.
Right. So it's $2,000 per employee, and we also, in our budget we passed, also is another $2,000 for post-certified law enforcement. So they would be getting $4,000. And throughout the budget, there's places where we have adjusted other departments or agencies' pay as they came to us and were talking to us about the needs of their agency. State employees have traditionally not been the highest paid because you have such great benefits and other benefits that come along with it. But in the last 2-3 years, even maybe 4 or 5 years, we've seen an increase in our turnover. We're not being able to hold on to employees as long as we had in the past. So we've got to, we have to make our salaries more competitive. So we've done that in many places. We did some of that last year. We did it with the $5,000 increase for all state employees last year, which helped a lot. It's helped, but there's still some places that needed some help. And we've hopefully helped them and adjust those starting salaries up so they can get the employees and they'll stay and we can retain them.
Yeah, you had state employees going to other agencies, other
we're our own worst enemy. Agencies will still other state employees.
You guys have good employees.
Federal government takes some, but we've got one agency, and I'm not going to say who it is, but their turnover is 95%.
That's pretty high.
You can't run a business that way. The state's turnover is around 25%, and hopefully that is falling. I did see some statistics where it was dropping some, but that's 25% is not good. I would hate to have a business and my turnover would be 25% because you're continually hiring, training, and spending time there and money that you shouldn't have to all the time.
So good news when it comes to that. Let's talk about education. Once again, QBE fully funding it, and it's nice to hear that right now at a time when we may be hearing some things rumbling because we remember 2008, 2009, 2010. It's
$13.1 billion. It's the highest amount ever to K-12 education. So.
Wow. So that's the most ever, huh?
Right.
Let's, in the budget, $8.4 million for roughly 5% pay raise for school nutrition workers, for school bus drivers, for school nurses. Talk about that. This is an area they don't usually get a lot of love.
Right, these are non-certified employees that haven't gotten a lot of love. They need adjustment. They've had turnover. One of the things that you didn't mention, but I'm proud of, is a $1,000 raise for all our custodians. There's like 8,300 custodians, and it's a $1,000 one-time gift for them, or whatever.
Working in the schools, really essential.
The custodians
to the schools.
they see the students all the time and develop some great, or can be great mentors. Because for the students.
Yeah, so these are the areas we don't think of that are essential. You can't teach a child who can't eat or can't is in an environment that's not clean. So let's talk about the school nutrition part of it. That is good news.
No, it is. We've done that. We've given them a raise, and you know, like you say, what you just said, that if a student's hungry, they're not going to be able to think about what they're supposed to be studying and learning. So you've got to make sure that they're not concerned about where their meal's coming from. We did fund an additional, I think it was $6.3 million in the budget to make sure that those students that are on reduced lunch and breakfast charge will be able to have free breakfast and lunch.
Yeah, let's
it's
talk
like 60-something thousand students will have lunch, and another 35,000 would have breakfast.
And they were going to lose all of this. This was federal money, right?
No, it's federal money. They wouldn't lose it, but we had the school nutritionists, quite a few, come to us and talk and tell us stories that will make you cry about students that didn't qualify for free but are on the reduced program, that just they didn't get the money to eat that day, and they give it. You know, they would, if one of them students starts crying, you know what you're going to do. You're going to give them something to eat. So they came to us with those stories, and you know, we're human, and hopefully that'll help that problem.
Yeah, to make sure they're getting it really is sad to hear some of those stories. So let's talk also about the Lottery for Education Fund, because we heard a lot about that throughout the session, with some people thinking that part of that might be helped by, you know, sports betting. Right now, we're not hearing that. But let's talk about what's going on for Lottery for Education, because there are some good things for Hope. And
you know, we did, you know, the House version did recommend a 95% grant for Hope, which is those that qualify for Hope, their tuition would be 95% covered by Hope. We chose to preserve the Zell Miller Scholarship, which is 100% of tuition. That is a little different than what the governor had asked for. But many in the House felt like we've told all the students about the Zell Miller Scholarship, and they've been working exceptionally, you know, hard to be able to get that. So we chose to keep that, you know, where it is at 100% and let the Hope increase from 90% to 95%. Been a lot of talk. I had discussion today with several people, and there's a lot of other things on the table with that. And as we know, it's got to go through the Senate, and then we'll be in conference, and the governor may come to the table with something different too. So who knows? But I think you know, what we've offered in the House version of the 24 budget is an increase in what you receive if you're a Hope recipient.
And this includes private schools.
Yes,
you thought of them.
Private schools currently do. The amount that a student going to a private school is a fixed amount. It's not a percent of tuition, and we increased that rate proportionately.
Okay, let's talk. There's several items in the budget meant to attract people into the workforce, into certain jobs, by helping to pay for education after high school. And so I want to put this up. There are loan repayment programs, and among those eligible for those are those working in qualified behavioral health professions, GBI medical examiners, law enforcement officers, and health providers in rural areas. So this is saying you go into these areas and you spend some time, and we'll help repay your loans.
Right.
Talk about that.
A lot of that goes on now, especially in the medical physicians, getting physicians go to rural parts of the state, and we have that plan in place now. But it's expanded with HB 1013 with the behavioral health part of that bill last year. We've done some for law enforcement. There's all sorts of different programs in place for that, just to try to get more people out in the rural parts of the state, and you know, medical examiners. That you know, if you were a medical examiner right now, you can write your check and write where you go. There's a shortage nationwide of those, and we need to do anything we can to try to get one here, or get somebody trained that'll stay here. So that's a lot. That's what a lot of those are, different programs just to try to attract people to get the training and stay right here in their home state.
Yeah, including, you know, people in law enforcement to say, okay, if you're going into this, if you put the education in and you help us out, then we're going to help repay your loans. Let's move on to some human resources funding in the budget. There's money. Oh, before that, let's talk about money to help fill the gap left by the closing of Atlanta Medical Center. What's there for that?
We put a little money in for the Mercy Healthcare Clinic here in Atlanta that has really been overrun by patients that would have normally gone to that hospital. But that's one of the big pieces, and I know we're trying to assist all the the other hospitals nearby with anything they've needed. We did. I don't remember exactly what was done early on, but I know the government had released some funds to help them, and they've the restrictions on the number of beds they could have. I know that was released, and we opened up some more emergency room beds at Grady. So a lot of different things. A lot of people really work to hopefully make that so that there's not a huge hole in that service right now. So.
That another one of those areas where you talk about the need. So let's move to some human resources funding in the budget. Another area that we might want to look at is in the Department of Public Health. The House provides $1.7 million for a pilot to provide home visiting in at-risk and underserved rural communities during pregnancy and early childhood to improve birth outcomes. That was pretty big this year.
Right. This was a big want of Commissioner Toomey. We constantly are on the bottom of the list in our rate for maternal mortality, and this is something that we're trying things to do anything we can to not be bottom on that list, because that's just reflective of so many different things in the state, and there's a lot of focus on that throughout many different entities across the state, and it's got to help. And we've just got to make sure we have that care out in rural parts of the state, and make sure that our mothers are getting the care they need up front and afterwards. We put money, or we passed a bill last year and put money in the budget to increase coverage for mothers that are Medicaid, I think, for a year after they had delivery. So
there's been a lot. I want to put that graphic up again, so if we could talk a little bit about some other the things you're doing in human slots for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, new behavioral health crisis centers in Augusta, Dublin, Fulton County, and Rome, additional slots for the Georgia Housing Voucher Program, money to increase salaries of state psychiatric hospital employees, and more behavioral health support for children and adolescents. That's a lot, and a lot of this is focus on some of the mental health bill, carrying out last year's and
and that's, like I mentioned earlier, just the need. The 24 budget had an increase of $51 million in mental health funding over what the governor had funded, and the governor, I believe, had funded an additional $70 million in mental health, in behavioral health and disabilities, and so I believe it was about $120 million worth of new funding in that area. It's a priority of the House. It's a priority of the Senate. It's a priority of the governor. Unfortunately, we have a lot of families, a lot of that have those needs. So we need to help them.
Okay, so then I want to get in one other area, and that's public safety. Under public safety, some new positions, and so we have a graphic up about that. Several new positions dealing with GBI and scientists and crime lab technicians, evidence receiving technicians, an IT person to look at all of that, employees to address 40,000 pieces of backlogged evidence, which tells you why the judicial system is having a hard time moving on. So let's talk about that a little bit before we go any further. So that
we did, one thing that we did fund is a new cold case unit, which is new, and I think it's real interesting. Hopefully that can get off the ground. We didn't talk about it in the 23 budget, but we put, I think, like $68.2 million in our corrections department, just in the facilities to increase, to work on maintenance and repair items that were needed in the facilities, also to increase the security and all the technology that can be, there's new technology that can help with making sure our state prisons are the most secure. So that's a lot of money we put in them.
Yeah, and the budget opening a new women's prison, too.
Right, that's in McRae funding. That's, I can't remember if it's going to be open in 23.
But it replaces Arendelle?
Right, and it was an existing private prison that they decided to to stop business there, and so we've taken over the prison and had to done some renovations, and I don't think it's too far from reopening.
Yeah. So a lot of
people in McRae will be happy with that.
Yeah, they will. I know that in the Arundel area, with they did lose some employees, but maybe some of them will be able to move on. I don't know how far they are. So we haven't paid attention to you much with all of this. Tell us the next step in this process when
I'm just learning from Chairman Hatchett. Just listen.
So you don't have to read through it now. He's told you all about it.
That's right. If he could have put the little notes on what I'm supposed to take back out, that would have been easier.
So what happened? Tell me what's happening right now in the Senate when it comes to the budget he's sent over.
So we're in a little bit of a crunch because of time this year more than most. And that's no fault of Chairman Hatchett or the House. It's just kind of the way the calendar's fallen. Got 8 days left. Usually it takes 16 days from the day the House hands us the budget for us to run through all of our 8 subcommittees, finish up what folks at the Capitol call green door, come out with a subcommittee report or a committee report, and then present it to the Senate committee, the Senate Appropriations Committee. And then from there it's 3 days on the floor. Because we have a dead day for rules. The rules calendar of the Senate requires you to slow down bills before they eventually pass, so you can't go from committee to the floor in the same day. So if you use that calendar, that puts us right on the 28th or 29th for final passage.
Wow.
The calendar sets us for sine die right now on the 29th of March. So we're going to have to figure out a way to go faster than we've ever gone before with a lot of moving pieces. So a lot of work ahead. Really thankful for the senators who I get to work with, the subcommittee chairs, the lieutenant governor, and the leadership he's already provided. And I know we're going to get there. We always do.
So the good news was you did have a schedule that was condensed, because I know a lot of people are happy that everything will be finished before spring break. But on the other side of it, it really puts crunch time in there for you guys.
It crunches on the budget. The budget's probably the only bill that it really crunches, because anything else can lay over for another year. We don't get that luxury with House Bill 19. We got to make sure it passes in some form.
Talk about the conference committee. They've already said their priorities. You'll have your priorities, and then you got to get together and make it work. So how does that happen?
We arm wrestle.
Oh, is that it? I knew there was
each
a secret to it. Can we get that on tape? Can we get? I would like to get the video of that. The two of you.
Our conferees are set by rule in the Senate. The House's conferees are set by rule in the House, and so the 6 of us will sit down and try to pair out the priorities of our constituents, our membership, and then the state as a whole. And it always works out. It might be a little more tense this year just because of time. But Chairman Hatchett has been so extremely adept already in just 32 days of being chair of House Appropriations. He's done a phenomenal job, and there's no doubt in my mind we'll finish it up again this year.
32 days. That's that's a lot. So can we talk about the fact that you handed it over to the Senate and said, "Here, take it," right?
Yeah,
basically.
not left town. No.
No, it's a lot. It's been a lot on you, hasn't it?
It's a lot, and it was. I was stressed.
Yeah.
Last week was stressful for both. I mean, we had the conference committee on Monday, so that passed Monday for the 23, and then Thursday I had the 24 on the floor. So it was a busy week.
Yeah.
But I'm confident that the Senate and Chairman Tillery will have it back in plenty of time.
That's it. We do have a few minutes, and I did want to ask about something that I know that the Lieutenant Governor favors, and that's after the Buckhead Cityhood didn't go through the announcement of this patrol center up in the Buckhead area. Talk about that.
Well, that's one of the things we're going to have to go through and look at. We want to make sure that we have increased patrol. Building itself may not do that. So we may be looking at whether or not that should go to salaries, or we may keep it as a patrol post. I'm not sure. But I think the citizens there would feel a whole lot more safer with patrol than they would necessarily a building. So that might be one thing we get to address on the Senate side. Not 100% certain yet. We'll see as it continues.
So it may not be a building.
It may not. That's the thing about when one bill crosses the chambers to the other. It could look a lot different, but I'm sure the bones of what they've done will be very apparent, and it's not going to look like a complete new baby.
And the main thing is the safety issue that brought up what some people wanted to split Buckhead off from Atlanta, and that's addressing that.
Well, that was a House announcement from the Speaker's office in the House budget. We're going to take a look at it and make sure it addresses the concerns they thought they were addressing. And if we think there's another way we can tailor it, we may tailor it more. Right now, it's just a little too early. We don't even have the committee report from our Public Safety Subcommittee yet as to how they wish to lay out the budget.
Okay, so the reason I asked is I did interview the Lieutenant Governor last week, and he favors it. So I'm sure you guys are going to find a way to make all of that work. So as we wrap up, you've got on your green, tell us about Dublin, which you're going to be the end of this week, St. Patrick's Day.
Dublin has a very large St. Patrick's Festival. It runs all month. It's a family-friendly festival. It's in its 57th year. So I happen to know because it started the same year I was born.
Oh, wow.
That's why I keep up with it. But I've volunteered with it a lot and still do. And we had this past weekend, we had a hot air balloon festival. But this weekend is what we call Super Weekend. Ooh. So we have a road race, parade, all sorts of different park festivals. There's a Main Street Munchies. They close downtown down and have bands and all sorts of food vendors. So it's just a fun time. You hope it's all dependent on the weather. So I hope the weather, I hear that Friday's weather is not great, but Saturday may be better. So I hope Saturday and Sunday are good because this is what they call Super Weekend. So it's a lot of excitement. It's just a fun time, fun family-friendly time. And when he's finished with the budget, he can just run up to Dublin and come enjoy it too.
I was going to say it's a good time to de-stress for you, and you may have to join him, though.
That's right. You can come join us for the Onion Festival afterwards.
Oh, in Vidalia. That's right. Okay. So thank you both for being here and explaining all this. I appreciate it so much. Have a great weekend in Dublin. But that's all the time we have right now for Lawmakers. We return tomorrow for day 33. Have a good night.